Wonderful. So with that, I'll turn it over to our presenters.
All right, thank you, Tabitha, and welcome everyone. Let me just give you a quick preview of what our goals are for today's session. We would like to start with a quick overview of research in the field about generative AI and assistive AI tools. Then, of course, we would like to invite you to test out some of the strategies that we present you, and also have a conversation about limitations and boundaries of these AI tools. We also would like you to help us co-create a toolbox of strategies and see how we can support our students as we introduce these tools in some of our classes. And today we would like to focus on tools such as WordTune or Quillbot or ChatGPT from OpenAI or Google's Bard. And we are going to start with a quick review about what we know so far about the advantages of assistive and generative AI tools in the learning process. So I will hand it over to Max.
Okay, thank you, Krisztina. Sorry, I'm taking control here and sharing mine. So there is research going back for years on various assistive AI and automated written corrective feedback programs, though Grammarly, as the oldest one, is the most commonly researched. Most of the literature is about Grammarly, but we think that conclusions from that research are applicable to the apps that we're discussing today, specifically Quillbot, WordTune, and then to some extent ChatGPT and Bard. You can, even without using ChatGPT, with using things like Quillbot and WordTune, which are will offer revisions to text that you enter into them. Using those, you can receive both direct correction and, to some extent, metalinguistic explanation of the errors that they detect. And both of these types of error correction are useful to students, and students can benefit from them. But the value of assessment, the value of feedback always is largely dependent on the amount of student engagement that the teacher is able to create. The good news is that teachers, though perhaps if you polled teachers right now, there would be a decline in the positive response rate, but according to recent research, teachers have positive perceptions of the use of these kinds of programs or technology in general to help with language instruction. And students like it too. Students feel like the feedback that they get is valuable, and while they might not always use it in the most effective way, they see the value, they appreciate it. Of course, with all technology, technical problems can be an obstacle to effective implementation, and then the students' attitudes, like that level of engagement, is also highly variable, and teachers need to accommodate that and plan accordingly. Supervision is very useful in making these an effective part of your lesson planning and a learning tool for the students. Because, for example, and this is certainly not surprising, some students will really consider the feedback that these apps give them on their writing and make it a learning opportunity to make the changes that it suggests or reject the changes that it suggests, and think about the differences between what they wrote and what the program tells them they could change it to. Other students just copy and paste, make the changes, and don't think about it at all. We think that and in our experience, if we supervise students and design lessons effectively, we can get more of the first type of response, thoughtful and considerate integration of those revisions into the writing, rather than unthinking, deleting, and replacing. As I said, most of the research has been about Grammarly. There's less about WordTune and Quillbot. And of course, there is, without doubt, a lot of research about ChatGPT happening right now, but there isn't a lot in the way of published literature about all of those because of their novelty. But we believe, and I think we're getting a little bit of results from our own classes and our own research, that supervised use of AWCF, that's automated written corrective feedback tools, can lead to less student reliance on overuse, abuse, and unacceptable use of these tech tools. We're on the lookout for more research. We are conducting our own research in the classroom using these, but we are getting some encouraging results. And outside of our own little group, who Krisztina and Susan and I are working on these and using these in the classroom, if you take a little spin around the higher education blogs, you can see there's a huge variety of responses, particularly to ChatGPT. Some teachers are just accepting it. Oh, it's here, and students are going to use it, and we will put no limitations on their use. Others are trying to create strategies and set boundaries to avoid abuse, but not discourage effective use of it. Some are really emphasizing how it can increase inclusivity. And we partly agree with all of these responses. Its use is inevitable and it's potentially beneficial, and that benefit is contingent on proper implementation. And I believe I'm passing it back to Krisztina now.
All right, I think I successfully took.
Yes.
Maybe I wasn't successful enough. Okay, there we go. All right, so like I said, today we would like to focus on tools like WordTune, Quillbot, ChatGPT, or Bard from Google. And I do have a Zoom poll, and let me see if I can actually launch it. And I would like you to go ahead and please participate. There are 2 questions. And please let me know if you can't see. All right, I think that Grammarly is still the leading tool. And it looks like that ChatGPT is fast approaching Grammarly's popularity. Well, we'll see how maybe today we can convince you to try out these other tools as well and see if you can see their usefulness. And so for students, all right, so my question is, can you see the results? Okay, good. All right, and for students, Grammarly definitely, and some ChatGPT and WordTune responses. All right, so we asked you this question because we also asked these questions from our students. And the reason why we did is because we suspected that our students have been using these tools. We just weren't so sure that they were actually using these tools properly. And so we just wanted to know, okay, you know, what kind of tools are you using? Do you have a strategy? How are you using it? What kind of tutorials? Is somebody helping you figure it out? And so we would like to share these survey results with you. And these survey results come from 2023. And Max is going to start sharing the results that he conducted in his classes. Just unmute yourself, Max, sorry.
Thank you. I'm out of practice now that we're back in the classroom. You can hear me now? Yes. So Krisztina and I polled our students, and we got similar, not the same results from them about their use of these tools. My students are intermediate and high intermediate students from our pre-sessional group. That is, they're taking a combination of intensive English skills and regular freshman classes at American University. So first, we wanted to see what they're looking for when and if they use these tools. What are they seeking help with? And the most popular responses were vocabulary and synonyms, sentence variety, paraphrasing and summarizing, or all of the above, these ones and several other topics. And those are all things that these apps are pretty helpful with. What did they claim the most familiarity with? Unsurprisingly, Grammarly, one of the older apps, it was high on the list. And then after that, Microsoft Word spell checker, perhaps the oldest, certainly the first program of this type that I ever used before I thought of it as anything other than just some built-in function of Microsoft Word, and then Google Docs proofreading extensions, similar to Microsoft Word spell checker. So the number one, number two, number three options were pretty basic. We wanted to know how they felt about these, and they think 5 out of my, how many, 25? 5 out of my 25 students said that using AWCF apps and generative AI will empower learners and help them become stronger writers. 11 of them thought that it was very limited and it could help them only with certain tasks. 4 of them thought that it will take time to practice and be used according to their intended purpose. And 5 think it will feel like cheating on assignments. So, variety of attitudes. Some of them are encouraging and some of them we would like to change. Speaking of the need for students to be instructed in how to use these effectively, students were equally likely to say that they carefully read the online manual as they were to say they just figure it out as they go on the fly. And very few asked their teachers for guidance, likely partly because of this attitude that it will feel like cheating on assignments, perhaps as a result of other teachers giving them a clear prohibition on using any sort of assistive AI. 4 of the students said that they just copy and paste whatever the app tells them to change. They do it without question. And 21 said that they double check it, think about it, make sure it's correct and needed. So that group of 21 students who are being a little bit thoughtful about what they accept and maybe what they choose to integrate into their writing, that's encouraging. Which AWCF and assistive AI, which of these apps do your students or have your teachers recommended? Unsurprisingly, the most popular response was none, followed by Grammarly and Quillbot. Krisztina will now share the results of her surveys, and we'll give you our conclusions after that.
All right, so my findings were similar to Max's. So I had 2 groups of students. One group of students were graduate students and in the English language program, and the other group, they were almost freshman students. So some of them were already taking freshman courses. Some were still in the English language program, so sort of in this in-between stage. And so when I asked the question, which tools they normally use, of course, Grammarly was the lead. They also referred to the proofreading, basically spell checker in Google Docs. And then they also admitted that they use the translating software. So that's the one right here. And that was not reassuring. That was something that I did not expect to hear, but yes. And also they said that they use these tools because they want more synonyms or better synonyms, better vocabulary. They use them for sentence variety or length or paraphrasing purposes. And they did say that they believed that these generative tools are designed to empower them. So I think that they understand that it's for them, for a better user experience. Although there were quite a few students who said that they only use them for certain tasks. So they didn't quite make the connection that they can use it in everyday tasks as well. So it's not just for academic writing. And also a lot of students indicated that they just tried to figure out how to use the tools as they go. And of course, when you have tools that you have to prompt so specifically and that you actually want to use to have a better experience and a better outcome, you probably want to read the manual. But fewer students indicated that they actually read the manual. There were some who actually said, I asked my teachers to help me, give me instructions. And when I asked about the usefulness of these tools from their perspectives. As you can see, the larger the font, the more frequent their responses were. So they said, grammar, that was number one, and then spelling mistakes, vocabulary, sentence structure, synonym, fluency. However, what I can see in large fonts is the I don't know. And to me, that meant, well, maybe somebody should then tell you how to how to do it. And similar to Max's findings, so do you just accept the suggestions of these tools without hesitation? The overwhelming majority of the students said, "Oh no, I double check it," and I would like to believe that that's true. I also asked which tools their teachers have recommended, and yes, Grammarly is number one, but we can see a lot of Quillbot, Microsoft Word Spell Checker, and ChatGPT started arising as well. I also asked them, so how did your teachers suggest you use these tools? And on this first slide, what you can see is sort of the negative responses. So that's when students were, in fact, completely discouraged, or just nothing was mentioned in the classroom. So my former teachers demanded I not use them too much. They opposed its usage, not to use them due to plagiarism. Or, you can see multiple responses where it says that they just did not recommend anything. Now, on the second slide, this is when teachers were actually helping students or telling them exactly how they can help themselves. And so grammar stands out as the number one reason for using these tools, or changing sentences, verb tenses, spelling, vocabulary, synonyms, and I mean, vaguely just, check my sentences, whatever that might mean. And so what can we conclude from these surveys? And I can just stay on this slide. Max,
Yeah, you keep control because we're tossing it back to you 2 slides from now. So the students have the most experience with the older and the more basic options like spell checker and Grammarly. Grammarly, which has recently started advertising quite a bit. I'd never seen a Grammarly ad until maybe a week or 2 ago, and now I've seen several. Wonder why that is. Students are not learning about these apps from their teachers. So that's something that we absolutely can change with not too much effort. And students tend to rely on themselves when figuring out these programs. That is a logical extension of point number 2 here. They're not learning about them from their teachers, so they are learning about it themselves. And that might include reading the manual, which is great, or it might involve just muddling through, which was also a pretty common response. Next one, please. When students said what areas they needed help with writing in, they most frequently identified areas that these apps are really good at helping with. And students believe that these apps are limited in their ability to help them develop their writing skills. And we think that through good, well-designed classroom practice with these, they can be perhaps less limited than students thought. But students do think critically about the suggestions that these apps give them. So that shows a willingness to engage in the kind of meaningful way that we try to encourage when we use these in our classes.
So having surveyed our students and of course observed what they do in the classroom or outside of the classroom, this is what our proposal is, or hypothesis is about online assistive tools or generative AI as we're looking at these language models popping up. English language learners are likely to use assistive tech tools more than ever. However, they are not necessarily prepared to view these tools as assets in their learning process that can be used systematically. Efficacy and meaningful engagement are vital. Therefore, we must establish those ground rules with the students. As a tech enthusiast myself, I also argue that these tools can be viewed as pedagogical intervention. If we think about digital equity, a lot of people talk about it very often, and inclusive classroom environments. I would say that especially when it comes to English language learners, these tools can be used for those purposes. However, one thing before we start going into the details of how to use these tools and what to use them for, something that I would like to emphasize is before you personally start using these tools or before you start introducing them in various class tasks, please make sure to take a little bit of time and explore the terms of use and the frequently asked questions with your students so that they know. There are a lot of things to consider here. Often teachers ask this question and even students ask the question, is it plagiarism? And these FAQs answer those questions. Or, am I allowed to use it? Do I need parental consent forms? Or, what kind of discussions do we have to have before we start using these tools? And so these frequently asked questions can definitely help out. And terms of use, some of these tools, they say, you should really only use them if you're 18 or above. For WordTune and Quillbot, I believe the age limit is probably 13, and it says that if your parents or guardians sign a letter, or even if your educator is there supervising you, then it's okay for you to use. But so just make sure that you read those details so you don't end up in in some legal issues or troubles. Now, if you're teaching adults, then of course you don't have that issue if they are 18 and over. But if you're teaching students who are under 18, there are a few things to consider. And so now we're moving on to this second section of today's webinar, which is, how can we use these tools like WordTune and Quillbot to help students improve their writing skills? And we're going to compare and contrast these tools. And first, Max is going to invite you to an activity.
Indeed, I am. So we are going to have a look at what WordTune will do for you and for your students. I invite you to try it out yourself, but I'm also going to show you a couple of results that you can get from it and some results that my students got doing a vocabulary activity. So right now, I'm going to keep this not full screen because I need to hop around different tabs here. So I'm sorry if it's not as big as you would like, but if you'd like, you can go to wordtune.com. When you visit there for the first time, you should see something like this, though if you've never used it, you will have some more options here. You can see it will say write or paste your text here if you haven't used up your free attempts yet. So you can go to wordtune.com. If you create an account, you can get this view where you don't have the limitation of how many attempts they'll let you try for free. So I've chosen a couple of vocabulary items here. These are ones that my students had to write vocabulary sentences with that we pulled from a text: prowess, agile, and mitigate. So you might take a moment now to write an original sentence using one of these vocabulary items. And if you want to make it not as perfect as you absolutely could, you can see the kind of corrections that WordTune will offer. Maybe if your students are writing some sentences that have minor errors in them. So I chose agile. And I have entered the sentence here. The runner who is agile has an advantage in the race. I wanted to make it a little bit, a little wordier than was necessary to see if WordTune would give me a suggestion, maybe to cut out that who is agile, that phrase, to possibly shorten it. So I can click here and I can see some suggestions. A runner who is agile has an advantage in a race, very minor change. In a race, an agile runner has an advantage. I like that one. I like an agile runner better than the runner who is agile. Races are won by runners who are agile. So I can scroll down and see quite a few suggested revisions, and that's something that I like to encourage my students to read several of these, consider which one is the shortest, which one seems to match their intended meaning the most. And they also can see that this part underlined in purple is the part that the changes are applied to. And the parts here in the suggested revisions in purple are the purple and black indicate which parts have been left the same and which parts have been rewritten. And there are options. We can shorten, we can expand, we can try making it casual, which means they use contractions some of the time. Oh, when I had it before, it said the runner who's agile has an advantage, but we're not seeing that this time because it generates these new every time. You won't get the same suggestions if you run the same sentence through, or not necessarily. If you have written I should show you, if we have, let's throw a little grammar error in there. The runner who agile win the race. And we will see what it does with that. Oh, I've reached my daily limit, sorry. But it will suggest things like just simple grammar fixes, the most basic that you would expect, something like the runner who is agile wins the race. And you'll get quite a variety of other suggestions as well. If anybody has an original sentence and a revision that they got from WordTune that they want to put into the chat, I'm sure we'd all love to see it. In the meantime, I will show you some real examples that I got from my students when they did this activity. So they were choosing vocabulary, novel vocabulary in a reading assignment and writing sentences using that, and then running those through WordTune and Quillbot, both of which we can see here, to get revisions for them. So I like this example. The one who are prowess are destined to be great, because the meaning is wonderful, but the grammar has a clear error where the student is teaching treating prowess as if it is an adjective. And both Quillbot, which you can see up higher on the right, those with prowess are destined to achieve greatness, and then WordTune down below it, prowess is a prerequisite for greatness. People with prowess are destined to be great. It does a nice job of retaining the original meaning, but giving a variety of changes, all of which have resolved the grammar issue, and which the students then can read and consider, and perhaps learn something from based on how they have changed from their original. On the other hand, if a student says something that is a little bit too original and WordTune or Quillbot cannot understand what it means, they will not rewrite it to an extent that it creates a clear meaning if it didn't exist there before, which some might consider a limitation, but I think it's useful because it suggests that the phrase brain atlases is not something that these apps will be able to create any meaning from. So it will maybe support your feedback to a student that this is just a misuse of the term, and they'll need to find another way to integrate it into a sentence. So this student said, "I will develop my brain atlases." You can see that the WordTune and Quillbot have rewritten that in different ways, in ways that are free from grammar errors, but still include this somewhat or entirely meaningless construction, brain atlases. Have we gotten anything in the chat? I don't see it, but if anybody does, you can correct
Nope,
me.
nothing in the
Sure.
chat.
Nothing? Okay. Well, more examples from my students then. I use this in a longer activity where students needed to interview each other about their hometown, and they used WordTune to help them correct errors in the questions that they wrote. And then they summarized the responses that they got and ran those through WordTune as well, and copied down their original next to the revision and reflected on the differences between the two. You can see here the original answer that their classmate gave them here near the top. I like landscape, is small hill. I can exercise with my friends, which makes me feel relaxed. And WordTune then changed this to, I like the landscape of small hills, which is a little bit better. When I am tired from learning so much, this is a helpful way to make me regain energy. So it again, we can see that it is removing the errors and doing a nice job of retaining the meaning, the overall mood and feeling of the writing. And we get a lot of answers that are more similar or perhaps more different from the original. Here are some links to activities that I have created for use with my students, one for forming questions and one for summarizing based on notes from a lecture. I will copy and paste these into the chat for anyone who's interested. I will add that in a moment after I have handed this off to Krisztina.
Well, and before you hand it off, let me share a comment that did come into the chat.
Oh, please.
So Ilka said the original that she put into WordBot, or what was it? I already forget.
WordTune.
WordTune was, I'm an agile project manager. And when it was revised to make it longer, it became currently, I am working as a project manager for an agile company, which is much more natural to my ear. And then she also has a version that was revised with spice that everyone can check out in the chat. That is very well written.
Yeah, there are these spice options to let you put a little bit more style or vibe or whatever into your writing.
Yes, and I can show you the spice option in a minute, but let's do a little bit of activity here just to shake things up. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a link in the chat box, and please go ahead and open it. It should take you to Jamboard. It looks like this. And you can just be on page, stay on page 2 right now. And what I would like you to do is this. If you could please type in Quillbot. So go ahead and open a new tab on your computer. So if you just type in quillbot.com. So WordTune is a little bit more restrictive when it comes to how many tries per day you can have for free. Quillbot seems to be a little bit more generous. However, to me, Quillbot is just a little bit sort of less adventurous than WordTune when it comes to paraphrasing sentences and coming up with options. But for free, it has it still has a lot to offer. So what I would like you to do, if you could please take a look at this paragraph. This is a paragraph written by one of my former students. And go ahead and copy. I can actually just make this happen fast. So go ahead and copy the paragraph from the chat and put it into Quillbot and spend the next 2-3 minutes on sort of tweaking the paragraph. So copy and paste it into Quillbot. Now, what you can do, and let me just show you on my screen. So of course you can click on paraphrase. So that's one option. You also have 2 options here, standard and fluency. So they will, depending on which options you choose, Quillbot will paraphrase your sentences slightly differently. And also when you look at this right here, it says synonyms. You can adjust this bar and basically you can tell Quillbot that you want to use a lot of different synonyms in here, or that you really want to make, let's say, fewer changes. So you can tweak the paragraph by moving this dot up and down depending on how many more changes you want to make. So go ahead and experiment with this paragraph. And once you're done and you think, yeah, I like what I see, you can just simply copy and paste it into Jamboard. You can click on the T just to create a text box and then paste your paragraph. And we're just going to compare what you end up with. And once you are here on this page, you can also click on individual phrases and sentences and modify them. So please go ahead and spend a little bit of time on experimenting with the tool and let me know if something is not working well.
So I have a question, Krisztina. Maybe this is just me, but I'm having trouble copying from the chat. Does
I also
anybody
can't do
know how to
that.
do that?
That's a Zoom thing, I think.
Okay, so if that's
Possibly, could you put it into a Google Doc and then put the Google Doc link in the chat?
so what I can do is I can make it even faster. So here it's on Jamboard now. Yeah, we used to be able to copy from chat. I don't know what's up with the.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yes.
Might have something to do with the settings of the Zoom meeting.
Oh, thank you, Diego. So they took the option from Zoom. That is
I
weird.
just Googled that right now because I couldn't figure out why I couldn't. I thought it might be just me, my laptop or something, and it looks like that option. I haven't taught remotely in almost a year, so I don't know when they did that.
Oh, I wonder if they did it for like privacy reasons. Maybe people were sharing too much information or from meetings. That is so interesting. All right, so once you're done, playing with the sentences, please copy and paste your sentences using either this page, so page 2 or 3 or 4. Yes. And then you can resize the text by just doing this. So you click on the box itself, and once you start sort of dragging the side, then it will become bigger.
Yeah. Do we have a link to the Jamboard?
It is in chat, and you should be able to click on it though.
I don't have a link in chat. Maybe it was sent before I joined the meeting.
Okay, let me check.
Never mind. I see
Just
it.
move
Oh,
up
yeah,
and-
yeah.
You see it? Okay.
It's before my links to the classroom activities.
And of course, if you're not happy with what you see, you can click on rephrase multiple times. Still not happy, rephrase. Still not happy, rephrase. As you can see it here in the corner, it says add to Chrome. And so this is what my students have done. Basically, I told my students, use Quillbot or WordTune or both, or, just whichever you prefer. And so based on their preferences, I've seen them adding these tools to their Chrome extension as a Chrome extension. And so when they open up a Google document in which they have to write, just like Grammarly, automatically starts giving you feedback. That's what these tools do as well. they will underline parts of your sentences and they will start suggesting modifications. And so it appears for them. And as I'm looking at the slides, I can see some options here. I like this one. The speaker suggests that we must strike a balance when using technology. I also tell the students that, you don't necessarily have to use Quillbot or WordTune for every single sentence, but for your topic sentences, please do, because those should be, nicely done, informative, properly written, or, concluding statements, thesis statements. So for the important sentences, especially if they're using the free options, and of course, the free options are limited. And in that case, I highly recommend that they start with those very important sentences. And then if they have some freebies left, then they can go ahead and spend it on other sentences. So what do you think about these tools so far? Any feedback from our participants? Something that you would like to share? Diego?
I haven't heard of Quillbot before now, so I haven't tried it very much. So that's a caveat here, but I'm not very impressed with the paraphrase. I mean, I guess it depends what you're paraphrasing for, but this paraphrase, if you're trying to write a summary of a longer text, this is not a great tool because it just paraphrases sentence by sentence, right? And depending on the goal, you often want a summary to be a lot shorter than the original text, right? With fewer details and things like that. So this doesn't appear to offer.
Oh, if you want to use the summary option, I think you have to go on the side.
Oh, I didn't even see that. See, I haven't even played around with it except for just a second.
Yes, sorry. Yes, so just
okay. Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, so if you want the summarizer, that is going to be a different, yes. Yeah.
And then
this is here just purely, it just paraphrases whatever.
Right, exactly. Well, then, I guess when would we use this, right? Like if the students could just use a direct quote in that situation in most cases, maybe the students could use it to, if they have a sentence that they've read like in a textbook or something, and they've read it like 5 times or a paragraph and they don't understand, then it might help to have the syntax rearranged, because that is quite impressive the way it does that. But I don't know that I really see this helping with writing that much. Yeah, I mean, like you said, it has its limitations, and we need to figure out what the best use of each feature of it is. I'll have to check out the summarizer another time. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yes, so it's, again, it depends on what you want the students to use them for. If you think that your students are maybe low intermediate, and you anticipate that as they write, they will, their sentences will include, quite a few mistakes, even punctuation, subject verb agreement, and so on. If they put that one sentence in here, they should actually receive the corrected version on the other side of Quillbot. So at least, that's a good start. Another thing that I found was that if you just use Microsoft Word, the spell checker, if you click on a word and it just, you'll see a list of synonyms, but those synonyms are just random, any synonym that comes to mind. This one seems, or this one in WordTune, it seems that these tools actually think about the collocation. So it's not going to recommend something that would not fit the sentence. Or if it does, then it's going to change the words before and after for you. So then you don't end up with some super awkward sentence. So I would, I would say that. Right, so let me just let's do the same thing with WordTune. And I have another paragraph here. And what you can do, you can use the entire paragraph, or you can just use random sentences from this paragraph. And so with WordTune, yes, if you don't sign up for the paid version, then you're going to run out of sort of tries,
You can
rewrites.
try opening in a different browser. It might give you a new set of free attempts.
Yeah. One thing about this, though, it has, just like with Grammarly, it has the editor's notes on the side. So then it will give students feedback regarding, grammar mechanics. So there's that. I actually signed up for the unlimited WordTune on Black Friday because it was 60% off. So if you personally want to sign up for any of these tools, just be on the lookout if it's one of these, big events, President's Day sale or something, then, you can sign up for a lot cheaper than what it typically costs per year. But so please go ahead and experiment with the paragraph, and I will go over to page 5. And this is the paragraph, and you can just use the entire paragraph, or you can just take a sentence. And so I talked about spices earlier, so this is the one. Let's just say, well, first of all, I can go ahead and just see what's going on with this with this sentence. In media, many people can use false information to spread. And let's just say I'm going to click on that. Click on spices, and then here, what students can learn by using spices, as sometimes we give them feedback and we say, well, finish your thoughts, or give an example, expand on this bit. So once they use this, and you can actually provide them with a paragraph that you prepare for them to practice these skills. So when we tell students, write a paragraph, add support, use good support, sometimes they look at you like, well, what do you mean? And so this can give them an idea of, this is what I mean. And so they can just click on these options. And so it will give them that kind of practice. And once they see, it's like, oh, that's what you mean by explain. That's what you mean by expand. That's what you mean by. So I think that it's a good learning tool for, for that reason. And as you're experimenting with these tools, I would like to hear from you, what do you think about the boundaries? What do you think, if you have any thoughts at this point? Oh, I can use WordTune or Quillbot for, X purposes in my courses. What would they be? And yes, Ilka, I agree that we still need human eyes to make sure that these revisions make sense. That is absolutely true. I would say on the first 2-3 occasions when I asked my students to use these tools, they weren't really thinking about just looking at the details and just am I using the correct option from, let's say, WordTune, because WordTune will give you, 10, 12, maybe even 15 different options. And so it took them a few tries to understand that, you really need to slow down and think about which one you select, because it doesn't know. And I tell the students that, you are in charge, you're telling the tool what to do. And if it's just randomly pick one, it might not match your paragraph anymore. And so it's a trial and error thing for sure.
It also doesn't tell you if the content is correct, right? So maybe grammatically.
Oh no, the content,
the original
it's just
article
the language
didn't
model.
fit. Yeah, exactly. So that's where they definitely need the human eyes, probably more than anything, right?
Right, and that's why when people initially started panicking about generative AI, that students will no longer need it, and no, it's they still need us, and we still need that that feedback and that continuous revision. However, when I used to tell students, well, can you look for better words, look at synonyms, and they were like, I've got nothing, or where do I look? I think this is good. So, these tools will be helpful when it comes to sort of, brain freeze, like, I don't know what to say or how to say it. So it's going to help them. But beyond that, yes, that you still need your brain to fully function. And so it's not, the AI is not going to take over just yet. So.
I just wanted, sorry, Krisztina, I just wanted to interject. Somebody asked in the chat in a private message. The session is a 90-minute workshop, so we'll continue until 11:30. If some people, I think a lot of times people assume 1 hour, but we are going to continue for another 25 minutes or so. If you're
right, and now that we just said, AI and will it take over, I'm going to hand it over to Susan, and she's going to tell us if AI is coming to take over or not.
All right, I realized I was muted as well. Okay, so I'm going to answer Albert's question in the chat about how we could use ChatGPT. I'm going to talk about ChatGPT and BARD, and I'm going to move away from the student side to the instructor side and talk about how we could use this as instructors. So we can use it to provide personalized feedback. We can generate sample essays, quizzes, and tests, and we may even have some suggestions for research, but I have some caveats about that I will mention. Okay, so, all right. So for instance, this is a prompt that we can use. So provide feedback on this paragraph based on its topic sentence, supporting sentences, conclusion, coherence, and mechanics, and then include the sentence that you want to generate responses for. Prompts are very important because if you ask for this, it will never give you more information. You have to continue to prompt the chatbot, and you have to continue to prompt it to add further detail. So as an instructor, you will find that it's useful in some instances. Of course, there's the issue of, is it completely ethical to put it isn't ethical to put identifiable student information. So how much student information? I don't know. I will throw it out there. And how much student information is okay to put into a chatbot? I don't know. So writing good prompts elicits good responses, whether you're asking for feedback, text creation, question creation, or research support. So I'm going to excuse the word heavy pages, but I just want to show you some of the things that can be generated and what it generates. So for instance, no, sorry, this is the wrong slide. It says writing a lesson plan, but this is a feedback thing. Okay, writing feedback on student essays. You can write a comment on a student essay. You can, so I have asked the chatbot, write comments on a student essay, address the student directly, use bullet points, because these are all things that I figured out the first time I did this. It created a very generic response. So I haven't provided the student essay here. I have in just kind of shorthand mentioned what I saw in the essay. I haven't detailed the comments. So I asked the chatbot to write feedback on these student essays, and this is what the chatbot provided. Dear student, thank you for submitting your essay. Here is some feedback. All right. So I'm like, no, this is not quite what I want. So I have to restate my prompt. And I said, please rewrite this using bullet points and adding positive feedback in the beginning. All right. Now, there are two things. One is I keep saying please and thank you to this chatbot because it's very helpful. And the other thing is that I hadn't earlier made any positive comments about this essay, but the chatbot provided a very good, first sentence. I can see that you put a lot of thought into your essay. So the rest of the information is the same. It's similar to what I had before, but just put in bullet point form, which is quite helpful. So this, using the chatbot like this, it doesn't see the student essay. It just sees your comments and provides feedback based on your comments. So you can have detailed feedback. You can look through it and some of it may not apply, in which case you delete it, but it's helpful. All right, so would you like to, since we are pressed for time, perhaps we will just skip this, because I was going to have you try ChatGPT or BARD for feedback for a random student paragraph, but perhaps we don't have a lot of time, so I will move along. All right, so I have also used this to write a lesson plan, excuse the lack of capitalization. I become very lazy while typing sometimes. So write a lesson plan with activities for a writing class on description. Activities can include writing, speaking, group work, etc. The lesson should cover about 2 hours of class time. The reason I said 2 hours is so that I can cut things that don't apply. Each activity should be carefully described and actionable. And it wrote me a very nice lesson plan, some of which cannot be used. I mean, this is for a much lower level class. Some of which is I wouldn't necessarily use. Now, part of the problem with ChatGPT is if you ask for a lesson plan, what it will do is that it will, and you say 2 hours, it has a tendency to make one activity like 30 minutes or one activity 40 minutes. So you really have to spell it out. Create a lesson plan. Each class activity should be only 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So it will modify what it's doing. Okay, so then for the descriptive essay, I had it write a sample essay, write a descriptive essay about a children's playground. Now, I had my students writing essays and I was like, we should smell it, we should hear it, we should, so I asked it to use a lot of sensory details for the sample. And I said 10th grade because this is lower intermediate. So I didn't want something very difficult or vocabulary that's very difficult. And it's not a great essay, but it is structured like the essays that they are using. You can then or that they are writing, but you can use this as a base and then you can ask it to make every sentence a 5-paragraph sentence, or make every paragraph a 5-sentence paragraph or better. So it will do that. It will develop it if you prompt it as to where the development needs to take place. All right, another thing that I do with this is vocabulary quizzes. Create sentences and write 10 fill-in-the-blank questions using the words above, so students can guess the meaning from context rather than through definition. It's pretty good, but sometimes the context is not identifiable. So again, it's a good starting point, but we can't rely on it. As Ilka said earlier, there's a lot of human intervention required. Now, this is kind of funny because the first time I did this, I said, create a vocabulary test worth 20 points. And then I said everything else, but I did not have each question should be 1 point only. So at that point, it created one word, like one sentence. That was part of the vocabulary. It's very literal. So if you want it to be worth 20 points, but you want 20 questions, you have to specify. All right, so write at least one question for each word, and then I provided the vocabulary. I don't think I gave you I put up here the vocabulary quizzes, but the advantage to doing this is that you can keep generating it. It will generate different sentences, different synonyms and antonyms and so on. And it'll do grids and matching boxes. It does that quite well. So this is a task for which it is kind of designed. It's designed for this very simplistic, very easy task. All right, so then I want to talk a little bit about research and source support, both in ChatGPT and Bard. You would think that Bard is better than ChatGPT because Bard is connected to Google and all its online resources, including Google Scholar. So you would think that it would be able to do research and everything. ChatGPT announced earlier that it's only has access to data up to 2021. And so it isn't connected to the internet. It doesn't have that live connection. And so therefore information is limited. But however, when I use both the programs, I find that they have the same types of limitations. So I asked, what is the most frequently cited article in the field of English language, English as a second language in the last 5 years? So it gave me a set of articles and said that it began with, it doesn't have access to some real-time information, but it is able to provide these slightly older articles for me to review. Now, I said, can you give me a proper APA style reference so that I can look it up, right? So you may recognize some of these names, very famous names in our field. However, when you look at these articles, they don't exist. They are a mishmash of author names and article names. So if you try, I can toss that in somewhere. If you would like to look up, for instance, Norton McKinney, the complexities of identity and intersectionality in second language education, there is a similar article, but it is not this. I mean, this doesn't work, and this DOI doesn't exist. So every DOI that's been provided, you throw it in you click on it, and it's a fake. So, but a student could construct a lovely bibliography, but it's not. It wouldn't be real. So then I went on to I asked Bard the same question. What is the most frequently cited article in the field of English as a second language in the last 5 years? And it gave me articles, and using it provided the number of times this has been, the number of citations of this article. So you think, okay, so like as in Google Scholar, where it finds the number of citations, I thought this would be similar. And it has this lovely Google it button and everything. But then I wanted to ask a few more prompts to narrow it down. What is the most frequently cited article? Please redo the information above, providing the year of publication. Please give me a list of the most frequently in the last 5 years. I narrowed it down a little bit. And then I said, but then it kept giving me more. So I thought maybe it needs a broader range. So then I said, include publications after 2013, because I thought it just wasn't giving me 5 years. And then it provided me with this list. I cannot find a single article from here. I will share this with you, but I cannot find any of these articles. The authors are all authors in the field. The books, some of the books exist, like but the articles do not. So even if you go into a book, like for instance, Ortega in the Handbook of Second Language Acquisition, there is a Handbook of Second Language Acquisition. Ortega does have an article in it, but it is not this. This is not the article. So use with caution. All right, so utility of ChatGPT and Bard for research for students, not particularly useful. They can do the same thing on Google Scholar. And for academics, also not particularly useful. But for other things, yes, it is. I would have a task of some sort, but I will instead turn this over to Krisztina.
All right, so I believe Albert shared an example with us. Was it page 6?
Yeah, that's it. Big families with an apostrophe S.
Okay, so what did you want to say about the paragraph that you use ChatGPT?
I thought you were having troubles getting a sample, and I was just offering a sample, that's all.
Okay. And
if you want, I've got the Google Doc with my interaction on this paragraph with ChatGPT.
yeah, do you want to share it?
Sure.
And while we're waiting, I just wanted to say one thing about ChatGPT, something that my students have done before. Initially, when I wanted them to have a conversation about their research topic, I simply asked them to have the conversation with ChatGPT, try to come up with a very specific sort of, research topic, an angle, and they documented their conversation, and it was very helpful because they actually walked away with a problem and a couple of solutions to further explore. So for them, that was a useful experience. Something about ChatGPT that I wanted to say is, or just generative AI in your classes, what I recommend is make sure that you have a page in your syllabus in which you explain and make it clear for the students that, if we're using them, how you're going to use them, and also that they should only be using them for classwork where you specifically ask them to use these tools, so that they don't go out there and just start using them for everything. And so I promise them that they will develop digital and AI literacy skills. So I will show them what it means to prompt these tools properly and how to use it. They have to follow my lead, and they have to wait for me to give them the signal. Otherwise, who knows what they end up with. And of course, having that conversation, it's a long conversation with the students for them to understand it. For instance, Susan talked about academic articles. ChatGPT and Bard can summarize articles, yes, but just telling things to students that you're not allowed to copy and paste a scholarly article that's behind a paywall, because then you're violating copyrights. And so just having that very honest conversation about things that they can and cannot do, looking at the terms of use together with the students. And I tell them that I know everybody just clicks on I accept whenever, but I tell them that in this case you actually need to read what's in there. It's not very long, and then we're looking, we look at the terms of use together in the class. So then, and those frequently asked questions, the FAQs, because again, they need to know what they're using it and how they're using it. And if students use ChatGPT or Bard to write any work, then I show them, and this is something that I will be happy to share with you. If you scan the QR code, this is a page that takes you to the educational side of ChatGPT. They created a whole page for educators in which they actually seek feedback, like what type of help do you want as a teacher? How can we help, or suggestions, and then they can implement that. But also, how to cite work done by ChatGPT. And so I show this to my students, but this is in the graduate class where they use the tool when they cite material. So Albert, are you ready to share, or?
One second, I was just writing that, so it doesn't matter if the students are writing the words that they've typed are their own, or they've copied them from ChatGPT. If they came from another source, then the students must be using voice markers and the quote sandwich, etc., or they're plagiarizing. So the only thing that I had was just my interaction. I wasn't prepared to present on it, but people can look through it and you can see that some things work smoothly and other things did not. And if you go toward the end, you will see that I question Chat GPT. You know, I've asked you to do this and you've done that. I asked you to check for spelling. You didn't mention that there was a spelling error. And I asked you to check for academic language. Do you think that the word vibe is academic? And then it says, I'm sorry, you are correct. Vibe is not academic. So I just thought that it was an interesting interaction, and we can see the limitations of ChatGPT, but when it rephrases things, it does a pretty good job. So that's pretty much all I wanted to add. And for anyone who may not have used it yet, this is, you can see how it works. That's all I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you. One of our colleagues on the WTSL board actually found this, this nice chart, 20 ways to use ChatGPT in the classroom. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you take a look and see what it can do. Now, here's the thing about ChatGPT, it speaks multiple languages. So if you're worried that maybe your students switch to their first language and then they will continue the work in that, then you might want to switch to Bard, because Bard right now only speaks in English. So they say that, oh, we're working on adding other languages, but right now, English only. So if you want, and if you want students to talk to Bard, I don't know if you can see that on my screen, but here's the microphone. So there's the voice recognition built in. And so if you want that kind of practice with the students, then, do that. Or again, we're talking about equity purposes. If students can only use, voice typing, then again, it's a good inclusive tool for that. But yeah, so Bard and ChatGPT, I would say at this time they are both very useful for instructors. We can, it helps you save time when it comes to writing lesson plans. And of course, it's not going to be perfect. You still need to go and make it relevant to what you're working on exactly, and how you want it to how you want to present it to your students. So that's still absolutely up to you, but I think it is a huge time saver at this point. And students can also experiment with it. But like I said, I can't emphasize it enough to take the time and talk about these tools before you actually ask students to start using them, so they don't go rogue and just use it in a way that just creates more problems than what you hoped for. All right, so let me stop sharing my screen and see if anyone has any questions, any doubts. It's probably a lot to take to take in, and of course a lot to consider. And hopefully at some point we can resume this conversation and see how you have been applying these tools in your courses.
Well, I did use it for feedback with my student. I'm having a bad hair day. You guys don't want to see it. My hair looks like a feather from the back end of a chicken. Yeah, I tried using ChatGPT for feedback, and I had to look very carefully through it and delete some things and alter some things. So one comment that ChatGPT made was that a word from another language in another country, dealing with that country's culture, it was making a correction. And I felt that that was inappropriate, and I had to take that out.
Yeah, I mean, it's learning from us. So So there's still a lot to think about. All right, well, thank you so much. And we will make these slides available when we post the recording on YouTube. And so if you want to go in and take a look at the details and the information, we will share it with you for sure.
Yeah, so thanks so much to Krisztina, Max, and Susan, and to everyone for attending today. It was a really enriching session. We have some more webinars coming up over the